Time for my end of the year book tag. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zach with Zacks Books, and today I have my annual end of the year book tag. I try and do this every single year. That's what annually would mean. And this year is no different. Of course, you know, I've got my list of stuff I'm going to go over. We'll link the books I'm talking about down below. Also down below there is Danielle's channel. She's very close to 1,000 subbies, so go sub to her channel. And also down there is the podcast, the Bookstagram, and the Patreon. So yay, all fun stuff. Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into my questions. First question, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? I feel like I have a couple of books that could technically be in this category, maybe two other ones possibly. But the one that I definitely want to finish is From Below by Darcy Coates. As you guys know, Darcy Coates is one of my favorite authors that I have discovered, and I personally really love like most of everything that she's written. Like, I don't think I have anything below 3 stars from her. So she's written a lot of good stuff, and I've liked all of them. I got all the way up to chapter 8 in this one, and for some reason I just put it down. I don't know if it was because I wasn't getting into it, just wasn't flowing well for me. Other books came up, I really don't remember. But I definitely would say this is a book that I would like to finish this year because, like I said, it's Darcy Coates is one of my favorite authors, and yeah, which she'll come up later. You'll see that, well, later. So yeah, book I need to finish this year that I started, From Below by Darcy Coates. Alright, question number 2. Do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? And that is yes, Rachel Harrison's So Thirsty. So I have read 2 other Rachel Harrison books, Black Sheep and The Return, I believe, and I gave both of those, I think, 4 stars. They were both really good books. The Return was actually one of the first ones I read with Danielle, and we both really liked it. This one, there's a blurb. A woman must learn to take life by the throat after a night out leads to irrevocable changes in this juicy, thrilling novel from the USA best-selling author of Sharp Teeth and Black Sheep. Sharp Teeth is one that I think needed to read, and I did not get to it. So by what Danielle has kind of told me, this is kind of like a vampire story, kind of like a little bit. This is also going to be the buddy read we have for the Dead is Better podcast, or well, book club that we have. So I definitely need to get to this, and Danielle I think's already read this book. What did you give it for? I could believe it, a surprise them. But yeah, she's already gotten to it, and I definitely need to get to this book. So yeah, there you have So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. Alright, next question is there a new release you're still waiting for? And that is Queen by Nick Cutter. Obviously, we don't have the book because it's not out yet. Duh. Nick Cutter is the author of The Troop, and I gave that 5 stars. He's also the author of The Deep. I gave that 3 stars. Little Heaven, I ended up DNFing that book. I really couldn't get into it. And then he also wrote The Handyman Method, which I actually really enjoyed that one too. I think I gave that one 4 stars, 4.5, something around there. But Queen, on a sunny morning in June, Margaret Carpenter wakes up to find a new iPhone on her doorstep. She switches it on to find a text from her best friend, Charity Atwater. The problem is Charity's been missing for over a month. Most people in town, even the police, think she's dead. Margaret and Charity have been lifelong friends. They share everything and know the most intimate details about one another, except for the destructive secret hidden from them both. A secret that will trigger a chain of events ending in tragedy, bloodshed, and death. And now Charity wants Margaret to know her story, the real story. In a narrative that takes place over one feverish day, Margaret follows a series of increasingly disquieting breadcrumbs as she forges deeper into the mystery of her best friend, a person she never truly knew at all. So, like I said, Nick Cutter has been an author that has been started out hot, kind of was a miss, and then had another really good book. I am really excited for this one just because, like I said, it's Nick Cutter. Like, he's got to have another banger for me. So, yeah, there you have Queen by Nick Cutter. Alright, next question is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? And the first one I'm going to talk about is The Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. And this one is, in the latest jaw-dropping thriller from New York Times bestselling author Riley Sager, a man must contend with the long-ago disappearance of his childhood best friend and the dark secrets lurking just beyond the safe confines of his picture-perfect neighborhood. So Riley Sager, I've read, I want to say, every book by him so far, and he's a favorite, but I will say there's been a couple books that were misses, and honestly I feel like he's progressively gotten better, except for The House Across the Lake. That book kind of, I DNF'd that one. I think that's the only one I haven't finished by him. But yeah, he's had a lot of really good books, and I've liked pretty much most of them. 2 or 3 were garbage in my opinion, but otherwise he's been very mid or top tier, really good stuff. So I'm very excited to get to that one, and that is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Alright, next book that I need to get to here is The Sequel by Jean Hanff Corlitz. So this is a book that, it's the sequel to The Plot, which Danielle and I both read that book 2 years ago. Might have been 3 at this point. It's been a while since I think that book came out. And we both gave it 5 stars. It was a really solid book, and I think it was in our top 5 books that year that we read it. So we're very excited that there is a sequel announced for this book called The Sequel. With her signature wit and sardonic humor, Jean Hanff Corlitz gives readers an anti-hero to root for while illuminating and satirizing the world of publishing in this deliciously fun and suspenseful read. So in this book, I vaguely remember the first one. It's just been so long. This writer took some dude's story and got all this accusations at him and stuff like that happen. And in this one, we're getting pretty much the wife of that guy writes her own story, and by what I'm reading in the paragraphs here, stuff starts happening to her. And so I'm very excited to get to this. Like I said, The Plot was such a good book, and we both absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to get this book. I honestly might need to reread The Plot though. Don't know. Anyway, there you have The Sequel by Jean Hanff Corlitz. Alright, the last book is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I've read a couple books by her, and this one is the opening night of the Manor, the newest and hottest luxury resort, and no expense, small or large, has been spared. The infinity pool sparkles, the Manor Mule, cocktail grapefruit, ginger vodka, and a dash of CBD oil is being poured with a heavy hand. Everyone is wearing linen. Under the burning midsummer sun, darkness stirs. Old friends and enemies circulate among the guests. Just outside the manor's immaculately kept grounds, an ancient forest bristles with secrets, and it's not too long before the local police are called. Turns out the past has crashed the party with deadly results. The girl boss, the husband, the kitchen help, the mystery guest. Everyone's got a secret, everyone's got an agenda, but not everyone will survive the midnight feast. And again, like I said, I've read a couple of books by Lucy Foley, and a couple of them are good, a couple of them are pretty merp, but anyway, this is one that I am really hoping to get to. So there you have the 3 books I want to read by the end of the year. Alright, the next question is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? So, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but my current book of the year is Boy's Life. And I really don't know if that can be topped, just point blank saying it. But if there was to be a contender, I think the highest one would be The Lord of the Rings. I know that this is a whole trilogy. There's The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. As a whole series, I could maybe see it topping Boy's Life. This is by J.R.R. Tolkien, by the way. And just because I don't know if one book will be better, but as a series as a whole, I truly think that The Lord of the Rings could be better than Boy's Life. If you don't know what Lord of the Rings is, obviously, where have you been? But this is a whole fantasy series, and one ring to rule them all. There's all this stuff in this series. There's also a prequel called The Hobbit. There's all these other spin-off books and series and stuff like that. And I don't usually dive into fantasy all that often. I did once before, and it did not do super well. And I think The Lord of the Rings is something that can really get me like back on wanting to be like in the fantasy train, just because it's a synonymous like story and like book, and the movies were great. I remember watching them when I was younger. It's a series that I really want to get into, and I really do think that reading all 3 books, I know that the question is what book do I think can. I personally think that the series The Lord of the Rings could end up being my favorite books of the year. Potentially. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. There's 3 of them. There's a lot of them. Well, not a lot. It's only 3. But anyway, we'll see if I get to this year. I really hope I do, and I plan to. So there you have The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Alright, the last question. Have you already started making reading plans for 2025? And yes, there are plans you already have kind of in store. Obviously, there is trying to read more books than I read this year. But I also would like to try and read more of the backlist of some of my favorite authors. Robert McCammon. Darcy Coates is a big one. She has a lot of stuff that I still have yet to read. And she's definitely one of the ones I want to keep going with. Obviously, I've read all of Stephen King, and I'm currently in like the rereading process for Stephen King stuff, so maybe try and get a more solid chunk of the rereads done and out of the way with next year. And I don't know. I almost went a whole video without talking about Stephen King, but it had to happen. But yeah, no, pretty much that's it. Maybe try and do Zocktober next year. I know this year we planned to, and we had it lined up, and then too many things just kind of happened in September to where we just couldn't get it done. So maybe try and do Zocktober again next year. Not sure. But my main goal is to try and read more of the backlist of some of my authors I enjoy reading from. So, but yeah, those are some of the plans we have for 2025. But yeah, so that'll do it for the end of the year book tag. And like I said, we'll link the books I talked about down below if they're available now. Some of them are pre-order because obviously they're what I'm excited for to be released. But yeah, all fun stuff. What is your list that you have for these questions down below? We'll link the questions down below too, so if you want to comment your answers and such. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.